So not that long ago I made a card review for Delney Streetwise Lookout talking about Tymna and Dockside. And my overall verdict was that it's a pretty good card. But now, as we've had the card for a while and we have calculated some tournaments where people have brought Delney into their builds, we can actually take a look at data and how it's performing and what's the actual verdict on it so far. So the first picture I would like to showcase is this one, and this is saying quite a lot. What you're seeing right here is how many decks have been playing Delney while also excluding Tymna the Weaver. As you can see, Tymna the Weaver is in black and white without colors, so it's excluded here. And we have 148 decks so far that have gone into tournaments with Delney inside their 99 without having Tymna as the commander or inside the 99. And the outcome from that so far have been 19.43 average win rate, which is kinda bad. But then if you do something like this, you move Tymna into the inclusion and add Dockside in the exclusion. So now we're playing something like non-red with Tymna and Delney together. The win rate goes up. That's good. We can experiment a little bit more. We are going to experiment quite a lot. So here we have Delney together with the Dockside, together with the Esper Sentinel, but still excluding Tymna the Weaver. We have 98 decks that have done this. This is some form of like Mardu version that is not playing Tymna. It might be some other variants that have access to white but don't play Tymna. There's a lot of different options that could run Dockside and Delney together without Tymna. And the win rate is still in red. But then once you do something like this, now we're playing both Tymna and Dockside and Delney. We're excluding blue here basically. We're cutting Kinnan and we're cutting Phantasmal Image, or we're just excluding those two cards more specifically. But now the win rate became kinda good, 24.33. But we can dig even harder. Here we have Delney, Dockside, Esper, Orcish Bowmaster, Tymna the Weaver, and we're excluding basically some stacks cards there. We're also excluding Daffy Voidwalker, because I've noticed that Daffy Voidwalker is usually receiving a pretty bad win rate in general, so I know that that is a card that is usually dragging down the win rate. So I'm trying to find a good combinations of cards that I know are performing good. Dockside, Esper, the Orcish and Tymna together with Delney were showcasing a good performance. And now I'm excluding something like, these aren't that good. And then suddenly we're hitting a very good number. We have 157 tournament entries with this combination, with an average win rate of 25.07. So now we're hitting good territories. There is another mix I also took a look at, and that is swapping out Dockside Extortionist to Lofo. So now we don't automatically include red. Red could be in this mix, but as you can see, Delney is still showcasing a good performance as long as you're keeping Tymna in the mix. Because I would like to just remind you about this one. Playing Delney without playing Tymna, regardless of whatever other stuff you're doing with Delney, doesn't seem to hit the mark. Also showcased by this. Esper Sentinel, Dockside Extortionist, great cards. Not playing Tymna, playing Delney doesn't seem to hit the mark. Once we're adding Tymna and good other cards, like here we have Dockside, Phantasmal, Delney together, win rate goes up. And boom, once you're starting to add even more, or I should say forcing the add of more typical Delney cards, or cards that are going to be synergizing with Delney, still keeping Tymna in the mix, we're starting to see a good result. So a verdict so far could be that Delney is good or something to consider as long as you're considering Tymna in the mix. So far, kinda. But there's one more thing I would love to mention, and that is that we don't really have that much sample size of other variants with Delney yet. For example, Sur and Delney could be good. Delney and Darevi could also be good, but we don't know yet, because those commanders aren't equally popular to different Tymna variations, or Tymna versions, Tymna partnering with other commanders. I'm getting a lot of tournament entries with Tymna, that's what I'm saying. I'm not getting the same amount of tournament entries with Sur the Enchanter. For example, I have 74 tournament entries with Sur the Enchanter. I have 99 tournament entries with Darevi, while I have 1,737 tournament entries with Tymna and Crom. So as you can see, it's a difference. So what I'm saying here is that I have data on Tymna with Delny. I don't have that much statistics on any other Delny without Tymna. So we can't truly say like Sur Delny or Derevi Delny yet. That is why we have this picture instead. So here we're looking at, once again, the collective of all different Delny variations that is not containing Tymna, and it doesn't seem to be good, so to say. So we're getting a pretty good picture of Delny being quite good. As you can see here, we have Adnos, Delny, Esper Sentinel, Crom, Orcish and Tymna. Crom, Tymna were the sample size we had the most of. And Delny being a quite new card, we already have 99 tournament entries from this commander pair, Tymna and Crom, with Delny inside their build. We're excluding Talion here, by the way. And that will be explained soon why. And so far, things looks great. We have a 75.89 average win rate. That's close to 26. Now, if you remember, I did showcase the win rate of Tymna Crom with 1,737 tournament entries, and that was actually quite higher. So let's start experiment. Let's do this. This is still Tymna Crom. We're not excluding any Adnos, we're not including any Adnos, we're not excluding or including an Italian. We have the typical Delny together with the typical Tymna Crom, and the win rate kind of dropped, or it's staying kind of good on 24.77, but it did drop. Now, if you remember this one, we were excluding Talion, and a lot of people have been starting to actually move into a more mid-range variant of Tymna and Crom and started to exclude Adnos instead. Now, the sample size is a lot lower. We only have 24 decks currently in Tymna Crom partner commander variants, excluding Adnos, including all of the 6 cards you see right here. This is more of a mid-range version of Blue Farm, so to say. We're excluding Adnos, and the win rate is down to 24.52. So a natural next step in this is to move Talion and Delny into the exclusion section, and that's when we get this. So big takeaway so far could be from some of you saying that Delny is bad, Talion is bad, cut those two and stick on Adnos. But here's the thing, these 921 decks are somewhere around potentially 1 year old. And when you're trying to understand stuff from statistics, from numbers like this, you have to take into account of other factors too. Maybe Tymna Crom in general is just dropping in win rate, potentially. Or I would like to say this. Maybe the big average of the top end best commanders in the format and the worst commanders in the format are getting closer to each other. From being here, maybe they are here. What I mean by that is that we are looking at a lot of tournament entries from older tournaments where they couldn't play Delny or Talion because those two cards weren't printed yet. But still, this is something to take into consideration. I'm mentioning this as I think it's very you have to be responsible and try to explain the data as well, so to say. You can't just sit here and say, oh look, Delny is bad, Talion is bad, Adnos is good, cut those and such. You have to mention other potential factors too, that have an impact on the statistics and outcome. We can of course look at other patterns, experiment a tiny bit to kind of see if Delny is worth the cut in other methods. For example, here we have 39 decks. Now this is excluding blue. As you can see, we have a Mystic Ramona, Rhystic Study and Fastest Oracle in the exclusion. So this is some form of Mardu variant with Tymna. Or Tymna Tana, Blood Pod could be as well. But here we have Delny, Dockside, Lofo and Tymna. And we already know that these free cards like Dockside, Lofo and Tymna are quite good. And yeah, adding Delny to this mix, excluding the color identity of blue basically. And we have 33.03 win rate from that. But if we do something like this, we're moving Delny up to the exclusion, still excluding kind of the same cards, but suddenly the win rate drops. A big reason why we're using LOFO here, by the way, is because LOFO is a newer card, so we're getting more of an update. If we wouldn't use LOFO here, we would be including a lot of tournament entries where Delny couldn't have been an option. Going back to this picture, what you're seeing here down here in the inclusion is a lot of cards that have existed for a while. Orcish Bowmaster is kinda new though. But also LOFO being a newer card makes this picture be a little bit more up to date. So as you can see here in this variant, Delny is doing some good job. So what I believe we're seeing is something I've been saying for maybe 4 years into this channel, when I've been talking about the power level and power creep and the tier list and such on this channel, is that yes, there are commanders that are really strong and dominant, but over time, as we're seeing more cards being printed, those dominating commanders are just receiving options while other commanders are receiving straight up upgrades. And as something I've already said in this video before, I think we're having the top end of commanders and the bottom end of commanders moving closer towards each other. I don't think that Delny is a huge upgrade for Tymna and Crom. That deck is already functioning quite well. So Delny is not boosting that build that much. But I think Delny is going to boost the win rate for this specific commander pair. I've already talked about how Delny is very key together with Tymna, but Krark is a big commander card that could utilize Delny a lot. Now, we only have 2 tournament entries with this commander pair, so we actually don't know anything, but I believe that Delny is going to be great and something of an auto-include inside this commander build. Because having Krark and Delny in play is like having 2 Krarks in play, similar to Krark and Sakashima. But Delny is also going to be a secondary everything that is synergizing as a creature with Krark, as well as being a great extra secondary Tymna, so to say. So Delny in this case is synergizing with both commanders. And I did showcase earlier in this video that Delny with Tymna was quite key. Delny inside a 99, where she doesn't synergize with the commander, doesn't seem to be recommended. So as an extra small takeaway, you're not wrong to cut Delny from your build, depending on the reasons that you do it for. In some commanders she will be awesome, but in some others she is once again just an option. But she's definitely not an auto-include. We haven't seen an overall dominating win rate whenever we get to see Delny inside the 99. We're seeing a mixed result. Some results she's not really making a huge impact, and in some other scenarios she does seem to increase the win rate a tiny bit. Once again, I think that we're starting to boost the lower end commanders and dragging them closer so that we have something of a more middle ground. And that is a very good indication because that is a move towards a more healthy format. I'm really looking forward to see how the development of Tymna and Krark goes, and I do absolutely think that some decks should more or less auto-include the Delny Streetwise Lookout. But we will see over time how things develops. I think a lot of people are going to put Delny into their builds and bring it into their tournaments, and I think that's great. I think you should experiment with that, and with that we will know more from that in the future. Hope you enjoyed this little extra bonus card review, or card review update you could say, for Delny specifically. Take care guys, and I'll see you in the next video.